Where's your emergency?
Ma'am, I'm fishing in Whiskey Bay, and I just found a dead body. It's floating right now. It's caught in between branches.
This is how a young woman's lifeless, unclothed body was found in Whiskey Bay, Louisiana.
This was brutal.
We had no idea where she came from.
Then, in the most unexpected twist, a 5-year-old's innocent words unraveled a deadly secret.
First, when we were about to get in the car, then Daddy said, we're going to go on a big adventure, and I didn't want to, but we did it anyway.
Tell me, where was your mom whenever you guys went on your road trip?
She was somewhere else.
She was somewhere else? How do you know she was somewhere else?
Because Mom wasn't in the car with us.
Shockingly, Roa had been with Fahad and their son during the entire car ride, but the circumstances of where and how were too disturbing to be believed. The grim reality of the situation painted a chilling picture, one that revealed the horrifying extent of Fahad's actions and the trauma inflicted on everyone involved, especially the young boy. This revelation added an even darker layer to an already devastating story, leaving investigators and loved ones reeling.
I squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until there was no more. He thinks he's already killed her.
That's an animal. You don't deserve to breathe. When I rolled about it, I could see her face and neck. It was unbelievably bruised, black, blue, green, and I knew that, this is not a classical drowning. His body was dead before it hit the water.
The woman's body was found partially submerged, with visible signs of trauma that left no doubt her death was no accident. The water, silent and unassuming, had held its grim secret for far too long. This was the darkest revelation yet. The state of her body painted a harrowing picture of violence and despair, adding another layer of horror to an already chilling case.
When we came upon her body, you knew that she didn't make it there on her own. She was completely unclothed. We had no idea where she came from, but we did know she came from on top of that bridge. The first thing that we needed to do was retrieve her body from the water. It indicated that she did not put herself in that body of water, and we were looking at a homicide. She had been the victim of somebody else's devilish ways.
The scene painted a horrifying picture of violence, leaving the police with the daunting task of uncovering the identity of the victim. However, the brutality was just the first layer of a much deeper and more twisted mystery. As investigators delved further, they realized that this case held secrets far darker than the initial discovery suggested, each revelation pulling them closer to the sinister truth.
All we know is we found a new female with trauma to the neck, head, and back, but I knew her fingers were good. And I was hoping and praying she had a criminal record. If she had a criminal record, it was a good chance that she had been fingerprinted somewhere before or her DNA had been taken.
We were able to get the fingerprints from her and send them into the Louisiana State Police Crime Lab. We had to make an identification because in homicide investigations, you need to know who you're dealing with and what their story is.
So we got lucky. It was late that night. I want to say it was about 11 o'clock that night, I think. The Louisiana State Police Crime Lab called and said, hey, we got an ID on her. She did have a small rap. There was a possession of marijuana. And they said her name is Elizabeth Ferrell, and she lives in Humble, Texas.
She was also a mother of 2 young children, aged 5 and 1, and was married to 31-year-old Jonathan Alley. Driven by urgency, the detectives rushed to obtain the autopsy results, hoping to uncover critical answers. What they discovered was nothing short of shocking. The findings not only revealed the cause of death, but also hinted at a timeline that could reshape the investigation entirely, shedding light on the tragic events that...
Her ultimate cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation and blunt force trauma around her neck and chest area as well as her head. Based on the injuries that I observed, you could tell that someone had a lot of rage. It just looked to me to be something personal.
But that was just the beginning. The autopsy findings brought Elizabeth Ferrell's tragic end into sharp focus, revealing a grim reality. This was not only a woman who had suffered immensely in her final moments, but also someone who had likely endured a long history of abuse that had eroded her life well before her tragic death. When news of Elizabeth Ferrell's death broke, the detectives quickly turned their attention to her husband, Jonathan Alley. As her closest relationship, he became the prime person of interest. However, Jonathan's reaction to the news only deepened the mystery. Instead of providing clarity, his demeanor and responses raised more questions than answers, leaving detectives to wonder if he was hiding something or if the truth lay somewhere far darker than they had anticipated.
Do you know Elizabeth Ferrell? Said, that's the mother of my children. So, well, look, we have found her here in our parish in Louisiana, and I hate to tell you, but she is deceased. I think his words to me was, where? I said, Louisiana. Well, what is she doing over there? You know, like, that's why I'm calling you.
From the very start, something felt off about Jonathan. When questioned about Elizabeth's death, he exhibited an unsettling calmness that immediately raised red flags for the detectives. His composed demeanor seemed incongruous with the gravity of losing his wife, especially under such tragic and violent circumstances. This lack of emotion only fueled suspicions, prompting investigators to scrutinize his every word and action as they sought to uncover the truth behind Elizabeth's untimely death.
He just didn't seem too upset about it. Not anything that I would expect, not a reaction to where he had broken down, but he was surprised about the situation.
When detectives spoke with friends, they uncovered that Elizabeth and Jonathan had moved to New Orleans in 2009 with dreams of starting a family. In 2010, they welcomed their first daughter, Rowan, bringing joy to their new life together. A few years later, they celebrated the arrival of their second daughter, solidifying their image as a loving and growing family. However, as investigators dug deeper, cracks in this seemingly happy picture began to emerge, hinting at a darker reality hidden beneath the surface.
Jonathan came out holding the baby. He was just absolutely glowing. You've never seen someone happier. It was one of the highlights of my entire life. Liz just loved being a mother. Having her family was everything.
However, financial struggles forced the family to make significant changes. After 3 years, they moved in with Jonathan's grandmother, Gail. What was meant to be a temporary solution quickly turned into a strained living arrangement. Life in Gail's home was far from perfect, and tensions began to rise.
I know there was strain because one of the last times I got to hang out with Liz, she spent time complaining about the way his grandmother was treating her. She didn't seem to want Liz there anyway.
I could definitely tell you that Liz felt trapped. She lived with Jonathan, the babies, and Gail. She said his grandmother didn't like her.
Following this discovery, investigators felt an urgent need to speak directly with Jonathan. Their skepticism deepened, particularly due to the unsettling calmness he displayed during phone conversations, which seemed unnaturally composed given the circumstances. When Jonathan surprisingly agreed to come in for questioning, the detectives were taken aback. As he entered the room, the air grew thick with tension, while his willingness to talk appeared cooperative on the surface. The detectives couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply amiss, and they prepared themselves to unravel the truth behind his guarded demeanor.
Thank God. You doing all right, man? Not from the ladies.
My first impression of Jonathan, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Nothing out of the ordinary from what someone who would lose a loved one should look like, but he appeared to be very disheveled.
Jonathan appeared visibly sad and stressed, but the detectives didn't let that deter them from delving into the heart of the matter. Jonathan claimed he had been at home with their 2 daughters when Elizabeth went missing and stated that the last time he saw her was on April 21, 2016, just days before her body was discovered. As the questioning progressed, Jonathan opened up about his feelings regarding Elizabeth's absence. However, he soon began sharing a different narrative about her, painting a picture that seemed designed to distance himself from her disappearance. His version of events and his portrayal of Elizabeth hinted at an attempt to shift suspicion away from himself, raising even more questions for the investigators.
Later, he revealed his feelings about her absence and shared a different story about Elizabeth.
He said that he went to get some money to try to pay the bills. One of the means of getting money was he went to a pawn shop, pawned an item, and then went to the bank to cash a check. Once he got back, Elizabeth was just gone.
Jonathan mentioned that Elizabeth had a history of leaving temporarily, which is why he hadn't filed a police report when she vanished. However, as the detectives listened to his explanation, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. A husband's indifference, especially in such a situation, often conceals darker truths. With their suspicions mounting, the detectives turned their attention to Jonathan's grandmother, Gail. According to Elizabeth's friends, Gail harbored a deep dislike for her, which had been a source of tension in the household. This revelation added another layer to the investigation as the detectives began to consider whether Gail's animosity might have played a role in the tragedy.
Gail was a little taken back by the fact that homicide detectives were knocking on her door. She was very stonewallish and dry about describing Elizabeth to us.
The vibe that I got was that they all tolerated each other in the house. They were just cohabitating, not real family-oriented or anything like that.
Once the detectives grasped the tense dynamics within the household, they began to question whether Gail might have been involved in Elizabeth's death. Her reported animosity toward Elizabeth made her a person of interest, and the investigators decided to probe further. They approached Gail to inquire about her whereabouts on the day of the murder, hoping her answers might reveal inconsistencies or provide crucial clues. As they questioned her, they carefully observed her demeanor and responses, aware that even small details could help them piece together the truth behind Elizabeth's tragic end. Gail's answers would either clear her name or deepen the mystery surrounding the tense and fractured household.
When we first talked to Gail, we asked her where she was in the last 3 days. Gail told us that she was at a campground.
We found the name of this place, and I spoke to management over there, and they said, yes, she was there.
So we didn't think that she had anything to do with Elizabeth's death.
Once we began our search, I took photographs of everything. I felt like we was only going to get one shot at that house, and I was looking for any type of journal, any type of sticky note, any type of scribble that was left behind linking her to Louisiana. I did not get any indication that there was any signs of a struggle in the house. I didn't find any evidence of where Elizabeth's cell phone was or where Elizabeth's gaming device was or anything.
After thoroughly searching Gail's house and finding no evidence linking her to the crime, the detectives concluded that she wasn't involved. However, they couldn't shake the feeling that a darker truth was still lurking, something that could explain Elizabeth's sudden and tragic death. Despite their growing suspicions, they struggled to pinpoint what it might be. In an effort to gain a clearer picture of Elizabeth's life outside the home, the detectives decided to interview her co-workers. They hoped these conversations would shed light on her relationships, struggles, and possible conflicts that might provide a crucial lead in unraveling the mystery. Through her colleagues, the investigators sought to uncover the missing pieces that could explain the circumstances leading to her untimely demise.
We were very helpfully provided information about Shannon Ferries. It appeared Elizabeth confided in her about her life and how things was at home.
Elizabeth's co-worker and best friend, Shannon, sat down with the detectives, driven by a deep determination to seek justice for her friend. From the very beginning, it was evident that Shannon was ready to share everything she knew, no matter how difficult the details might be. As Shannon opened up about Elizabeth's life, her revelations painted a picture of someone struggling under immense pressure. She spoke candidly about Elizabeth's challenges at home and at work, revealing details that would soon take the detectives on an unexpected journey. What Shannon shared not only deepened the complexity of the case, but also hinted at truths that had been hidden in plain sight, offering the investigators new leads to pursue in their quest for answers.
I use this word very harshly, husband.
Are they actually legally married to
They
your
are
knowledge?
still legally married, to my knowledge.
How long have they been married before we get any further?
They were married before they came here, so I'm not sure exactly how long.
So over 5 years?
Yes, sir. She found him from the synthetic marijuana on occasion. One occasion, she told me specifically, she found him on the floor, convulsing, I guess, and she stopped it. But at one point in time, he was doing some kind of job, and he hurt his hand and had a cast on his hand, and he hit her in the face with it. She had a black eye, and it busted both lips and almost busted out 2 front teeth.
From what I gathered from her, Jonathan tended to have a very volatile temper. She always came in with bruises and marks and cuts and stuff like that.
She wouldn't let us call the police for her. She begged us not to do any of that kind of stuff.
Shannon told investigators that she suspected Jonathan had likely abused Elizabeth, particularly when he was drinking and tasked with watching the kids. She recounted an incident from years ago before their youngest child was born, and believed that such behavior had occurred as recently as a year ago. Then Shannon dropped a bombshell that gave detectives a new and darker perspective on Elizabeth's personal life. She revealed that Elizabeth had confided in her about a secret relationship outside of her marriage. According to Shannon, Elizabeth had been seeing someone else, seeking solace from the tension and abuse at home. This revelation complicated the investigation as it introduced a potential new angle, the possibility that Elizabeth's love life may have played a role in her tragic death. The detectives now had more questions to answer. Who was this other person? And could they be connected to Elizabeth's fate?
After that happened, she actually point blank told them that basically they were over. She wasn't going to, what husbands and wives do. There was one from Oklahoma, one from Louisiana, and the most recent one was actually up in New Jersey. She pretty much met the one from Oklahoma here in Houston, Humble.
While speaking with the detectives, Shannon revealed that Elizabeth had been involved with a man she met through online gaming. This man had even traveled all the way from Oklahoma to meet her in person. The revelation introduced a surprising new dimension to Elizabeth's life, one the detectives hadn't previously considered. Suddenly, the focus of the investigation shifted. Detectives realized they needed to dig deeper into this new lead. Who was this man? What was the nature of his relationship with Elizabeth? And most importantly, could he have been involved in her disappearance and death? This new angle provided fresh momentum to the case as the detectives set out to uncover the identity and intentions of this mysterious individual.
Oklahoma, she talked with him for a few months prior to him coming down, and then they both wound up being sick the 4 days that she had off to meet him. So she never talked to me about him at all.
She didn't say anything about being intimate with him?
Not with him. The only one I know of that she was ever intimate with was, the Oklahoma guy, yes. She did say they had one that Monday that they were together. It was a wonderful day, and yes, she was intimate with him because she was feeling much relief after that.
Shannon's interview became an explosive source of information for the detectives. Not only did they uncover the painful details of Elizabeth's abusive relationship with Jonathan, but they also learned about her unexpected connection to Jason Swat, a man from Oklahoma whom she had met online through their shared passion for video games. What began as casual, innocent chats between Elizabeth and Jason quickly developed into an emotional affair, a bond that grew in the shadows, hidden from those around her. Now, this secret relationship was thrust into the spotlight, becoming a key focus in the murder investigation. The detectives couldn't ignore the possibility that this hidden love story might hold the answers to Elizabeth's tragic demise. Was Jason just a supportive confidant? Or could his connection to Elizabeth have played a darker role in her fate? The case had taken yet another unexpected turn.
Meeting with individuals who you meet online in person is risky behavior.
The internet can be a very dangerous thing. Gaming can be a very dangerous thing. But you see it in the news every day. These predators. She's gaming, she's on the internet, people, she has no clue who they are. This guy, he could have been a serial killer from New York. Could have been anybody.
According to Shannon, Elizabeth frequently spoke about her bond with Jason, even though their relationship was primarily virtual. She described Jason as someone who made Elizabeth feel valued and supported during her struggles, a stark contrast to her troubled marriage. Given the emotional closeness of their connection, the police initially considered Jason a potential suspect. His relationship with Elizabeth.
We learned that she had formed a relationship with Jason Swett, who had traveled across state lines to meet her.
They transferred him into my cell phone. He'd said that he heard about Elizabeth's body being found. I asked him, what could you tell me about her? And what was your relationship to her? What is your tie to Elizabeth? I was very careful when I was talking to him. I can't give him too much information because if he's the suspect, I need to be able to use that information against him.
Mr. Sweat told investigators that, yes, he had a romantic relationship with her, started off gaming, and he actually came into Humble, Texas, and they spent a night together in a hotel and had relations. That was very interesting, to say the least.
Mr. Sweat identified that he had not spoken to Elizabeth in a few days. She had mentioned that her phone was going to be cut off, and she wasn't sure when she was going to have service again. That was the last time he had heard from her.
However, after confirming that Jason was in Oklahoma at the time of the murder, he was quickly ruled out as a suspect. His phone records, along with other corroborating evidence, supported his alibi, proving that he had no involvement in the crime. With Jason cleared, the focus shifted squarely back to Jonathan. His story continued to raise red flags, leaving too many unanswered questions. Investigators honed in on his inconsistent statements, his unsettling calmness, and the tense dynamics in the household, determined to uncover whether he was hiding the truth about what really happened to Elizabeth.
When I first interviewed Jonathan, I remember asking specifically if he had ever been to Louisiana, because if Jonathan was our suspect, the one thing we needed to do was lock him into that statement. He told us that it had been a long time since he had ever been to Louisiana.
But recent? No. I was the first person to take her to New Orleans. Let me ask you another question. Have you ever hit her? Yeah. One time. That was the night I stopped drinking.
That was absolutely not the truth.
Just the demeanor that he was putting off. We call them indicators. Jonathan was putting out a lot of indicators different than Jason's, Shannon's, anybody else.
The facts remain. I didn't do it. I didn't do this. Who did it? I don't know.
I believe that Jonathan killed her. People go from I do to I hope you die more often than you think.
As the circumstantial evidence against Jonathan continued to mount, the detectives felt they had enough to take decisive action. His inconsistent statements, suspicious behavior, and the tense dynamics within the household all pointed to his potential involvement in Elizabeth's death. Determined to seek justice, the detectives arrested Jonathan, marking a critical turning point in the investigation. With him in custody, they hoped to uncover the full truth behind Elizabeth's tragic demise.
That's Detective Leslie Bradford. I'm sure in the affidavits and stuff you might have read her name before. Mm-hmm. Right? Major Ronnie Abaz, I major over all the criminal investigations division. Any detective that works for Evansville Parish Sheriff's Office, he's over. He does administration.
But I also intend to exercise my constitutional right for a lawyer.
Okay.
Can you sign it, please?
Certainly.
What day you call that? That's okay. I see where you checked off here that you do not want to speak to us.
Correct.
Okay. 6:10?
Yes, sir. It's 1810.
Following Jonathan's arrest, the detectives made a bold and risky move. They reached out to his 5-year-old daughter. They knew that children, even at a young age, could sometimes recall crucial details that adults might overlook or deliberately conceal. While careful to approach the child in a sensitive and age-appropriate manner, the detectives hoped that her innocent perspective might provide insights into the events surrounding Elizabeth's tragic death.
When the idea came up to have Rowans interviewed, I thought it was going to be a wonderful idea. A child of that age is the most purest person you can interview if it's done correctly. But it's not always as sweet as you think.
You get to sit right there. You like my room? Yeah.
Here in Harris County, we have the Children's Assessment Center. It is a great resource with professionals who are highly trained in this field in speaking with children in very sensitive situations as this one.
Recognizing the sensitivity of the situation, the interviewer started by engaging the 5-year-old girl in a fun and calming activity, such as coloring or playing with puzzles. This approach was intended to create a safe and comfortable environment, helping to ease her anxiety and build trust. By establishing this friendly atmosphere, the interviewer allowed the child to feel at ease before gently steering the conversation toward her mother. This method ensured that the young girl could share her memories naturally, providing investigators with insights into the events surrounding her mother's tragic disappearance while prioritizing the child's emotional well-being.
Alrighty. I've got a couple colors. What color would you like to use? I've got red. I think the red's getting a little hard though. Got green. I had a purple.
I want all of them.
Oh, you want all of them? Okay.
Because I can lay in my bunk bed by myself.
Have you had a birthday?
No.
All right.
Yeah, I was very happy on my 4th and 5th birthday.
The interviewer carefully explained the do's and don'ts to Rowan in a fun and engaging manner, ensuring the child felt safe and included in the process. They even mentioned that their conversation was being recorded, framing it in a way that seemed like part of the playful activity.
It was so loud that everybody in Humble could hear me when my mother died.
Okay. I wasn't there, okay?
No, I don't quite remember.
Okay. And tell me about whenever
I need a bean.
Although Rowan couldn't recall the last time she saw her mother, her innocent words confirmed several details the investigators had already gathered from Elizabeth's co-workers and friends. However, as the conversation progressed, her candid remarks began to reveal grotesque and unsettling details.
Well, you see, Daddy thought that Mommy always wanted to spend more time with her boyfriend named Brad, and he thought Mommy never wanted to spend time with him.
Mm-hmm. And so tell me, whenever Daddy thought about that, like what would Daddy do when he found out about Brad?
This was a pivotal moment in the interview. The mood subtly shifted as the little girl's innocent words took on a darker tone, pointing to a shocking truth that had been hiding just beneath the surface. "And we were in the car," she said, her small voice carrying the weight of something far more sinister.
And we were in the car for 3 hours.
And where was your sister?
She was just in her bouncer, you know. It was one errand and we couldn't find our way home, so we, look, it's the dolphin I made just like yours. I made the baby cry a little while later, and they got out of the car for a little while, and then they got back at the car.
During the conversation about their journey home, the interviewer gently asked an important question, one that carried the potential to reveal a chilling truth. The question was carefully worded, designed to be understandable for the young girl while probing deeper into the events surrounding that car ride. This was no ordinary question. It was a calculated move that could turn the entire case upside down.
When you got things out of the back of the car, where were you?
I was just still in my car seat. Me and Autumn was still in our car seats.
And where was the car parked at?
At the middle of the road.
At the middle of the road? Okay.
He didn't get run over because Dad's very careful.
So when he stopped in the middle of the road, did you see what he got out of the car?
No.
Okay. Did you see what it looked like?
No.
No? Okay. And when he gets out of the car, was it light or dark out?
Dark.
Oh, it was dark. Okay. Were there any, what were you able to see outside?
Bunch of places.
When he stopped in the middle of the road, what did you see around you?
The little girl, unaware of the significance of her words, shared crucial details that could bring justice for her mother. She described a 3-hour drive, the car stopping in the middle of the road at night, and her father getting out to retrieve something from the trunk. These innocent observations, delivered without any sense of the weight they carried, provided detectives with a vital lead. This was the breakthrough the investigators had been waiting for. Now they just needed to uncover where Elizabeth was during that drive and whether Rowan had seen her mother before they left the house. The pieces were starting to come together, and with Rowan's revelations, the detectives felt they were finally closing in on the truth behind Elizabeth's tragic death.
When you started on your road trip, when you first left, where did you leave from? Where did you start your road trip at?
I started my road trip at my grandma's house, because that's where we first got in the car. I think she was at work or something, or maybe at Grandma Grape's house. I think she was at Grandma Grape's house.
Grandma Grape's house. Okay.
Elizabeth's absence from the scene described by Rowan only deepened the detective's suspicions.
She couldn't see what it was. I can tell you what it was. In my opinion, he was throwing Elizabeth Ferrell's body over the edge of that bridge. And the rotten bastard had the nerve to bring the 5-year-old and a 1-year-old child that's in the back seat. And unbeknownst to them, their mother's dead in the trunk. They had no clue.
We know that Elizabeth's body was found in Iberville Parish, which is about 4 hours away from where she lived. Law enforcement began canvassing videos and cameras in that area to see if there was any evidence that could help with the investigation.
Jonathan's vehicle was identified as a small gray 2015 Nissan Versa.
We had an officer named Detective Jeremy Sanchez, and he deals with a lot of our video surveillance and things like that.
Footage surfaced showing Jonathan's car traveling on Interstate 10 near Whiskey Bay on the night of April 21st, 2016, the night Elizabeth was last seen.
He was able to see a sticker of an American flag on the rear window.
The license plate matches also. It comes back to the address in Humble, Texas. So that vehicle just didn't pop up on that camera without being driven there.
That one American flag sticker helped us put our case together.
The detectives were struck by a chilling realization. The spot captured in the footage, Whiskey Bay, was the exact location where Elizabeth's body was later found. With this connection, the evidence against Jonathan continued to mount, making it increasingly difficult for him to maintain his innocence. The case took an even more shocking turn on May 18, 2016, when an inmate in Harris County Jail came forward with a disturbing claim. According to the inmate, Jonathan had confessed to a heinous crime. In a moment of rage, Jonathan had acted upon a dark truth that had been gnawing at him, a secret he could no longer suppress. This revelation, combined with the growing body of evidence, transformed the investigation. The inmate's statement not only corroborated the detective's suspicions, but also hinted at a motive buried beneath the layers of this tragic case. It was a turning point that promised to unravel the mystery surrounding Elizabeth's death and bring long-awaited justice.
The jail informant had been assigned to the same day room with Jonathan and Lee.
Started talking to him and asking me, why are you there? I said, yeah, I'll tell you, he's real soft-spoken. He's a real soft, calm, quiet kid. So he sits down and he takes it from the top, man.
And Jonathan had told this individual what had happened that day and how he had killed Elizabeth.
Oh, he was very detailed, and it was a storyline to him. It's like this is how he laid it out to me.
Jonathan told him that Elizabeth was in the shower, the kids were home, and Jonathan had begun looking in Elizabeth's phone, and he found some messages that Elizabeth had been texting another guy. That the message was very explicit, raunchy, he called it, and that those messages enraged Jonathan. Jonathan told the informant that when Elizabeth came out of the shower, he put her in a chokehold and he began to strangle her until she fell to the floor.
He said, I squeezed so tight, I squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until there was no more. He thinks he'd already killed her. Okay. He said, then this woman made a, she's trying to come back. She's gasping for air. He said he runs over there and he takes his foot and he jumps up and he stomps it on her throat. He don't know what to do, so he stomped on her throat to try to kill her.
The details of Jonathan's confession, as recounted by the inmate, were chilling and deeply disturbing. Jonathan had revealed the horrifying acts he inflicted upon Elizabeth, driven by a toxic combination of jealousy and a sense of betrayal.
The inmate's account as to what Jonathan told him corroborates the autopsy findings that they had of the significant trauma to the upper body.
That information wasn't given to anybody else. That's only information that can be provided to that inmate by the killer himself.
Just when the detectives thought they had uncovered all there was to know about this dark and tragic case, the inmate revealed a chilling secret that twisted the narrative into something shockingly inhuman. The inmate claimed that Jonathan had not only confessed to killing Elizabeth, but also described a disturbing act that took place afterward.
He said he had sex with this body after he killed her.
Oh my God. To anybody to do that, that's an animal. You don't deserve to breathe.
After committing the horrifying act, Jonathan stuffed Elizabeth's remains into a Christmas tree bag and disposed of them in the water, believing he could permanently hide the evidence of his crime. Detectives later discovered that around the time Elizabeth vanished, Jonathan had pawned several of her belongings, including an Xbox he claimed she had taken with her when she left. He had tried to downplay her disappearance, telling the police that Elizabeth often left without notice. However, neighbors recounted hearing loud arguments just days before she went missing. With mounting debt and 2 daughters to care for, investigators began to suspect that Jonathan viewed Elizabeth's life insurance policy as a way to escape his financial troubles. What the detectives saw now was not a grieving husband, but a man driven by greed and capable of unspeakable acts. The web of lies Jonathan had woven was unraveling, revealing his true motives. In March 2019, Jonathan was extradited to Louisiana to face trial. In a surprising turn of events, he accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to second-degree murder. This allowed him to avoid a trial which might have exposed even darker secrets lurking in his past. While the plea deal ensured a conviction, it left lingering questions about the full extent of Jonathan's actions and the unimaginable betrayal he inflicted on Elizabeth and their family. Justice was served, but the haunting details of the case would leave a lasting mark on everyone involved.
He pled guilty to the charge of second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 35 years in prison. 35 is a long time, but not for murder. Murder, you should never see the daylight again. To me, it's a sweetheart deal.
The anger from Elizabeth's family was palpable. For them, no plea deal could ever come close to matching the horror and injustice of her loss. Adding to their pain in the aftermath of the shocking murder, Jonathan Alley's grandmother, who had always disapproved of Elizabeth, was granted custody of his 2 daughters, a decision that left Elizabeth's loved ones reeling. We extend our heartfelt condolences to Elizabeth's family during this incredibly painful time. In a case filled with dark secrets and betrayal, it was ultimately the innocent voice of a child that revealed the truth about what happened. We hope you found this video insightful. Please share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know which case you'd like us to explore next. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Criminal Abyss for more compelling stories that matter. Until next time, stay curious.